Hey everyone, so here we have Shannon back on. This was her third time on. This was like right after I think COVID hit. And yeah, the audio was a little glitchy and the video wasn't the best, so I decided not to. I tried to get her on, multiple times afterwards, but just the timing never worked out and I got so backlogged with things. But here's Shannon, everyone, and I do hope to have her back on again if I start doing things up again, sometime in the fall or whenever.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get into it with our guest, well, first of all, you should recognize our guest. Shannon is back on the podcast. It's her third time. She's one of the handful of people that we've had on for a third time. And, I saw on the calendar that it had been almost a year since we last talked. And like we were talking about right before that we started recording, what a year this has been. So I couldn't think of a better guest to have on than a guest that, really, we haven't talked about any of the things that have been going on, and I could do a 10-hour podcast just on that, all this stuff that's been going on, in and of itself. But she's coming to us from Michigan, and yeah, we're just going to get an update and talk all things with health and fitness with her, really. But once again, Shannon, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into it, the question that I ask every single guest for the first question, what is the weather like in Michigan today?
We are actually at a record right now. We are at 72 degrees. It is a record.
Oh my God. It's raining here and it's 42, and 3 weeks ago we got 8 inches of snow and that was not fun, but luckily most of it's melted now. And so, yeah, but winter has come a little early this year, and what better of a year to have a longer winter than, I guess, might as well just keep stacking it on everything else. But I remember, before we get into that, because again, I don't want to depress the audience too much early on because then we'll lose a lot of our viewers. But so going into the health and fitness, the last time we talked, you had just had a kid and you were getting ready to compete. And obviously it seems like 10 years have passed, but what have you been doing? What have you been up to this last year, and what things have really gone different? And, how's it been?
Oh gosh. So I think we talked in November and I was just starting to think about my prep for the 2020 year. And started my prep in January 2020, and my first show was scheduled to be in April. And then my national show was scheduled to be in May. And unfortunately, due to the circumstances, both of those were postponed. And I actually prepped through the entire quarantine. So my prep that went from, it's supposed to be from 3 to 4 months, ended up being a total of 9.5 months of prep. So it definitely was a very interesting experience, I'll just say the least. I will say the best thing about the quarantine for me and my family was that I got to spend more time with my daughter and my husband. So when my gym shut down and I wasn't having clients, I was able to spend more time. And for those of you who know, I do have a young daughter. She's 18 months now. But she had just turned a year during quarantine. And so being a mom and being able to spend so much time with a young child was just such a blessing. And so that's what I did. I spent time with my husband, but I was still in prep. And I think the hardest thing with that is not knowing when my show was going on and maintaining that physique for so long. So mind you, most people don't understand, preps are usually 12 to 18 weeks, give or take. My prep was 9 months. That was 30+ weeks of dieting and holding my body. And for those of you who understand how prep works, is you do a lot more cardio, do a calorie deficit. Well, when you stop and plateau, you increase your cardio, drop your calories. So we continuously had to do that for 9.5 months. So my cardio was up to 3 hours a day, 3 hours a day of cardio and 700 calories. I would never, ever, ever recommend anybody to do that unless you are working with a coach who knows what they are doing. But my body suffered tremendously from this prep. So now it's time to recover. My season is over, thank goodness. And now it's just trying to recoup and get healthy again.
Okay, so 700 calories. What was that 700 calories?
The main staple was fish and asparagus.
You're already having a bad enough time with this pandemic. You're just making it even worse. You're saying, how can I make myself suffer even more during this? But again, more credit to you. But yeah, the moment you said a 9-month prep, because some of the other guests that I've had on have also, prepped during the vast majority of it. And I'm just like, oh, you poor thing. But how, mentally, like we talked about the last two times, this is more of a mental sport than a physical sport. How did you even deal with that mentally? Because just physically enough, I'm just shaking just thinking about that. But the mental side of it, I mean, how were you even able to go through with it without, just going absolutely crazy?
Well, this is what happened. So the NBC, started postponing national shows. So my show was originally supposed to be in May, and so the next national show was scheduled to be in June. So my coach was like, "Okay, no problem. We'll push you back 2 weeks. You hold your conditioning fine." So that is why, and people are going to tell me I'm nuts because, and say my coach should know what they were talking about. The problem is the schedule of the NBC and IFBB kept changing. So your coach is trying to peak you for 2 weeks out, and then the show's like, okay, the next national show is 2 weeks. Okay, that show got postponed. Okay, so you have a 4 week timeline. That's not too bad. Prep another 4 weeks. That show was postponed and canceled. So that's what happened. It wasn't like we planned on doing a 9.5 month prep, but the show schedule kept changing. So I didn't actually officially step on stage until mid July for my national qualifier, which in fact was supposed to be in April. So that was a huge difference. And obviously, not the unknowing, I didn't want to give up my prep knowing I was so close to that pro card. So that is why I stuck with it.
Yeah, and I mean the hardest part of that too is not knowing whether shows are going to get postponed or canceled because you're literally this is your entire life going into it. So, how did you deal with that? Just did you just tell yourself, "Hey, I'm just going to go with the flow and not really whatever happens happens?" Because I mean, for me personally, I don't have a bodybuilder mindset, which is why I've never competed because I could not do that. After like the first two shows got canceled, I'd be like, "Okay, I'm not, this is not I'm just going to take a break." But how are you able to convince yourself, hey, maybe this next show will work or this or the next one after that will work because, a lot of people would give up, after that first couple shows got postponed and delayed.
Right. Well, the first thing that was in my mindset is I wanted to prove to everyone on my fans and my followers that you can have a baby and step back on stage in a year and look phenomenal. So that was like my one thing I wanted to keep inspiring women to be like, hey, listen, babies and having, getting pregnant does not affect the outcome if you prep right. So that was like my first internal motivation. And then the second one was once July hit and I kind of had my shows lined up a little bit, the national qualifier that I did was here in Michigan. And I spoke directly to the promoter and I said, listen, I want this show to go on, but if it doesn't go on, my season's done. What are your thoughts of what's going to happen? And for those of you who know, Michigan, we've been in the news, we had one of the most restrictive lockdowns and we still, it's still coming about. We're probably going to get locked down again. So everything was very, very restricted. So my national qualifier was in July. The promoter ensured us it was going on, and they ensured us it was going on because they had it outside. We were the first show to do this, and a lot of shows followed suit. They had the stage set up in the parking lot. They had it under a tent. It was 90 freaking degrees out that day, but it went on, and I qualified, and that's all I needed to do. So that was one huge sigh of relief. Once I got qualified, I was like, okay, regardless that I step on national stage this year, I'm nationally qualified for the next year. We're good to go. So that was the number one thing. I wanted to step on stage. I wanted to be able to step on stage that year and say, hey, I did this through all this pandemic shit. I was able to step on stage. I just had a baby and I'm good to go.
Well, the least thing they could have done is they could have put like fans on the stage then so that at least you get the hair flowing and everything and you get to cool down a little bit. But 90 degrees, again, all the stuff that these bodybuilders go through to just get on stage. And it's like this year just had a special plan where I'm going to make it as, worse as possible for them. But yeah, I just can't imagine. And how do you think your body really responded to that 9-month prep? Because like you said, I mean, a normal prep for someone, their body can have like severe consequences on them because it's just the body's not meant to be in that starved of a state. So how did you last the whole 9 months?
I will say that my body did suffer tremendously. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see and you'll notice it in my face, in my skin, and my muscles. It's just progressively got to the point where I almost look sickly because I held that conditioning for so long. Typically, when I'm in prep, my normal off-season weight's about 170. My stage weight's about 140, 150. But I do maintain. I lose maybe 2 or 3 pounds of muscle, nothing crazy. This prep, because I dieted for so long, I did lose a total of about 17 pounds of muscle. That was a huge, huge slap in the face for me because for those of you know, our muscle is so precious and you are so meticulous in trying to preserve as much as you can. And that 9 months of that 9 months of prep with the cardio and the deficit for so long really took a toll on my body. and dropping so much muscle. So that was the sacrifice that I unfortunately had to endure to get to the stages here.
Well, yeah, and just to alleviate everyone's fear, she's still got the guns, everyone, okay? So everyone out there who's just like, "Oh my god, did she lose it with all those 17 pounds?" So, hey, it's fine that way, but yeah, it's just been a troubling year for so many people, but yeah, I just can't imagine, what that must have been like for you. But what was that like when you stepped on that stage knowing that like all this hard work that I've put especially this year is finally paid off and I'm going to do it. What was that like to finally realize that, it's done now. Now I can finally relax a little bit.
It was great to step on the national stage, and unfortunately for me, it wasn't the placing that I wanted. And I know I talked to quite a few other competitors, and obviously just being able to step on stage was a blessing in itself. And I think everyone struggled with the way that their body reacted with the length of the preps. So on the other hand, I was very relieved once I was done because I knew that I had so long of a journey to recover and rebound from this. And I'm still actually rebounding. I think right now I'm like 9 or 10 weeks post show, and I'm still reversing and trying to get my body healthy again. So, it just definitely was an experience that I did. I will say this: in 2021, we go in and it's lockdown for the next 6 months. When we jump into 2021, most likely I will not be stepping on stage anytime during that. I will not risk that much muscle loss again to step on stage. It was just such a hard thing to accept because now like my off season weight is a lot lower than it normally is just because I don't have the size that I normally do.
Well, and also with that fact of, the loss that you've had, we talked about this, I think, the last two podcasts, but this makes, this is the best example to put it up with is, that fear that a lot of women have about, putting on weight after a show because, your body's not meant to be that lean. But what was that like this time, especially for you because of that 9-month prep where, I mean, you better put on some weight after that show because if you try to maintain that. But what was that whole experience like putting on weight, getting to eat foods again? Because I mean, I can't imagine it's hard enough to just on your normal, like 3-month prep, but on a 9-month prep, I mean, it just must be really hard to control yourself.
So I knew that my reverse was going to be difficult just because you're dieting for so long, and I'm like, okay, if I don't rebound properly, I'm gonna blow up like a balloon. I already knew that. Being a seasoned competitor, I know how to properly rebound, even though you still get the temptations. It's funny though, because I was on 700 calories for so long, my body, even though it craved food, my stomach was so small, it wasn't like I would eat a piece of bread and I would be so full for so long. So it was just it still is. It's such a process to just really slowly rebound. I will say my husband was probably more thrilled that I was off prep than I was because I mean, think of this, you guys, quarantine with a 1-year-old.
Was he basically singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead"? Basically.
Absolutely. I mean, mind you, 3 hours of cardio. I was still working out and getting my workouts. I was probably spending a good 5 hours at the gym or working out during the entire quarantine. So it was just such a sacrifice with the time. And, I will say this has probably been the most enjoyable off season. I was so excited to get fat. I was just so excited to enjoy food again and just feel like myself. I think the biggest disappointment for me for my entire prep season was because I lost so much muscle, my strength went down so incredibly much. And for those of you who know me, I love to lift super heavy, super hard. And, I'm just starting to get back into the heavier lifting because I finally have the calories to kind of correlate with my type of training I like to do.
Well, and obviously in this off season, it's going to be different than your last off season because you're trying to put on more of the muscle. How are you changing up the way that you trained from this last off season to this? Because knowing that you are going to have to put on some extra muscle again.
So I actually hired a different coach. So I'm actually working with Nelson Jones now. He, I voiced him my concerns about just being so small and needing to put on size. And I didn't want to take another entire year or 2 years to put the size back on. And thank God for muscle memory. And, my body's responding very well. And Nelson has me on, I'm eating probably close to 3,000 calories right now. My body weight's hovering between 165 and 170. So I'm very happy with that. And my strength is probably about 70% of where it is. So it's taking some time, but it didn't take as long as I anticipated, which I'm happy with. But Nelson has just been awesome with rebounding, keeping me lean, and making sure that I'm putting on the proper muscle and size without getting overly fat.
Yeah, and that's just so great. But when it came down to this pandemic too, I mean, so many people struggled to find places to work out. I mean, you obviously had your gym, but were there any times that you really had to improvise things because with everything being shut down, or were being a gym owner, you were still able to just go and train? Or but what was your journey like when it came to still maintaining during this pandemic? Because so many bodybuilders that we had on couldn't find a gym, and they're doing push up, pull up, and sit up workouts basically. So yeah.
So for the first 2 weeks of the shutdown, we did not go anywhere. My husband and I had weights at home. The gym that we actually worked out at gave us some weights to use in our garage, so we were able to borrow some equipment. And then a private gym actually reached out to me in my area and said, "Hey, listen, we know that you're prepping for a show. If you keep it on the DL, here's a key. You and your husband go train." And so that's what I did. I did not, obviously I didn't post on social media where I was, but obviously for us competitors, when you're prepping for so long and I was already 3 months into dieting at that time. And so I just quietly went in, trained, did everything I needed to do with lock up, sanitize, and go back. And like I said, I was the only one using that gym, and it was just for my prep. And so I did that. I say the funny thing is though, is you feel like you're breaking the law. I would have to go in the back way, park my car around, hide it, make sure that no one's watching you. And it's sad that it came to that, and people will think, well, you're a bodybuilder, you're just desperate. I've been told that if you are in the lifestyle, you'll understand that anyone that had that opportunity would take it. If you're not in the lifestyle, you just don't understand.
No, and I mean, hey, I would be impressed though if we had a couple people doing like some Rocky 4 workouts like in sheds and stuff like that out back using like wood and stuff. But hey, at least luckily it did not come down to that where I mean I had to move back in with my parents because I got furloughed. So I mean they luckily they have some equipment downstairs to basically maintain a pump. But as you can tell, I put on a couple of pounds because hey, it's you don't really have to. I mean I did do cardio so much. So when you're talking about 3-hour cardio, I understand that small percentage wise because my machine downstairs it only goes up to 100 minutes and then it shuts down. It's like one of those machines, so I would just go on like 9-mile walks and watch movies, but I ran out of movies to watch, so I stopped doing that then because I was like, okay, I need to be entertained in some form. So what were you doing for those 3 hours to keep yourself entertained? Because I mean it's hard enough for me to do 100 minutes and that's stretching it for me, but I can't imagine. Did you just have like stuff plugged in, or were you just at the point where you were just basically like a zombie and you didn't have to think anyway?
At the end of my prep, when I was just like, I was just so over everything, I would literally just turn on my Instagram live and just, hey, talk to everybody. But at the beginning of the prep, and I think I said this in my last podcast, I really restrict the how I watch TV until I'm doing cardio. So I'll get hooked on a series on Netflix or Hulu and force myself to only watch it while I'm doing cardio. So I kind of can get excited to an extent. Obviously, it's not that exciting when you realize you still have 3 hours, or you still have 2 hours down, and you only have 1 hour, that you put through. But it does make it a little bit more enjoyable just knowing that, okay, I get to watch my seasons and my shows. I mean, 3 hours of cardio. I mean, I pretty much binge watch every season in the first month, but yeah, it was definitely. I will say this: I've never done that much cardio, but for those of you who understand, when you're peaking and your show's so close, your coach will up your cardio. Okay, well then when it got pushed back a couple weeks, all right, instead of pushing down the cardio, you just add a little bit more to just kind of peak your body a little bit faster. And so what happens with cardio is you can't really go backwards once you're forward. You just kind of keep adding on to keep your body in that deficit because it's so used to that amount of cardio. So it is pretty much probably unheard of for a competitor doing 3 hours of cardio, and I most likely will never work with a coach that'll make me do 3 hours of cardio again. I will say it was absolutely fucking miserable, but it happened. I learned from it, and I just got to move on from it. And it was probably the most horrible experience I ever had. Nobody has that time to sacrifice during their day, regardless if you're a bodybuilder or not. Nobody has time to do 3 hours of cardio every freaking day for 9 months. That is just a waste of time.
I mean, if we added up, you probably walked all around the U.S. if you did it. If you were to went outside and walked, you'd be like one of those people where they do that over like a period. But yeah, I mean, that is the record that we've heard for cardio sessions, because most of them, I think the most higher ones we ever heard was like 2 hours and stuff. And even then, I'm like, oh god, but 3 hours, oh my god. So I don't want to dwell on that too much, because I'm even getting depressed having to hear about that, knowing that a human being had to go through that, for day after day. But when it came down to, just the mental side effects too of, not knowing about your business, about, having everything shut down, how did you deal with that? Because I mean, well, I'm gonna be honest now. I might even answer the question for you, because doing all that cardio, you didn't really have that much time probably to think about, how you're gonna deal with all that. But how did you still, find positive things out of that? Because I know, like you said, you still got to, deal with your daughter more, which is probably the best thing that could have came from this. But how did you stay positive during all this when it was so uncertain?
You know, um, the deeper that it's funny because I was so depleted probably by April already that my mind was just, I'm sticky notes everywhere. I didn't want to forget, whatever. And so it was just so um my I'll say this. My family and my husband's a disabled vet, and I have streams of income coming from every different angle. So when I wasn't able to get my stream of income from the gym, it didn't hurt us tremendously. It was okay because we weren't financially struggling, and thank gosh, we were very lucky. We're very lucky with that pandemic, so we didn't have that financial stress. So that wasn't something I was really worried about. It was more worried about how our gym was going to rebound, when we open up, were my clients still going to want to train with me? It was more of that stress that, and with Michigan, we didn't know how long it was going to take. For Michigan, they first were going to say the gyms could open up in June. Then they pushed it back to the end of June. Then they were like, no, no more June. Then July. Then it was, so I was more stressed. Okay, I'm going to be out of town competing. Is the gym supposed to be open? That's what I was stressing about. Well, our gyms didn't even legally open in Michigan until September. So we were closed from March until September. And legally, gyms were not supposed to be open for that time frame. So we didn't even open up until like September 15th. And so we're just still trying to rebound from that. We have a lot of members that are not coming back. Most people, when you're down that far from a gym, they build gyms in their basement. They find other means. They realize they don't need us anymore. And unfortunately, a lot of gyms in this area do not make it because of that reason. You're just losing too many members, or you're competing with Planet Fitness where it's $10 a month, and you can't compete with that right now.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, I think it went until July here, and even then people were complaining, and I was, I liked my setup, but yeah, I think so many people have found that too, where, I mean, it's just such an uncertain time. But so I am not that knowledgeable when it comes to like baby's first things and stuff, so I don't know if I'm getting this wrong, but has your daughter said her first word yet?
Oh yeah. So my daughter's 18 months now, so she's speaking broken sentences right now. I'm teaching her manners. Um, but other than that, she's very she's just it's very interesting to see, how they see the world and how they pronounce things, and they're just very aware of everything they do. So, my husband and I, me being, content creator and social media influencer, I really have to watch the amount of time I spend on my phone around her. She literally will watch mom on the phone, and she'll grab her little play phone and she'll just be on it. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, so my husband and I have an agreement, like when we're around her daughter, put your phone aside. Like, we want her to just understand, like, yes, technology is here. Oh, actually, the lighting is so much better now that it
It actually does look better. So before the podcast, everyone, she was telling me if my light does turn off in my room, I'll just stand up and turn it back on. But yeah, actually, the lighting does look much better. So hey, we'll just go with it. But what was your daughter's first word? Do you remember?
Her first word was dad, so she said dada. And then she said that for about a week, and then it was just mama, and then everyone was mama for about a week, and now everything is cat. So everything, because we have two cats at home, so she calls everyone cat, everything's cat, and we just go with it for now.
Well, that's awesome. I think mine was dad or dada or papa or something like that too for the first word, which is really kind of weird because you don't spend as much time normally with your father as you do your mother. So that's I don't get how that came to be. But so you already have her doing like squats, deadlifts, and no, I'm just kidding. You already have her with ankle weights on and stuff like that. But no, that's just so awesome that you're able to recognize, yeah, because the kids, especially when they're that young, I mean, yeah, if you were to be on your phone all the time, it's like, good God, they'd probably grow up just wanting to do that the rest of their lives. But especially during this pandemic, has there been any other positives besides the fact that you've got to spend more time with your daughter? Because I think for one thing that I've discovered for a lot of these bodybuilders is that the most positive for a lot of them is that, the social obligations, they don't have to worry about them anymore because no one's going out or doing anything. So have you found that might have made your prep easier had it not been for the pandemic?
It made it easier, but it was also harder because when you are in prep, you like to stay busy. So most of my preps, I'm like, okay, I'm working. I have clients all day. I don't have to worry about food. I just time my meals out. When you're in quarantine and besides me doing my cardio and stuff, you're stuck at home all day. So you're surrounded by food. Mind you, my husband and daughter are not in prep. I don't ever expect them to follow in court and make themselves as miserable as I am. So they're eating.
An 18-month-old on prep would be a very interesting sight to see.
So I just I would still cook meals for my husband and my daughter and let them eat and snack and how they wanted. So the hardest thing was keeping yourself busy and not thinking about food when you're starving. So, and especially with Michigan, when we went to lockdown, it was actually still winter. So there wasn't a lot to do outside. We couldn't go for walks outside. Being outside with a 1-year-old is not that fun when they don't want to wear their gloves and their hat. So and mind you, when we started in quarantine, we lived in a smaller house. Another positive, we did find our dream house during quarantine. We had lots of time to search and buy it. We bought a new house during quarantine, which is awesome. So we did get to spend more time, renovating our house. We had tons of downtime, so we did that. But
hey, I mean, there's always got to be some sort of positives out of all this. But yeah, I mean, it's just been so transparent that what a time to have been alive. I even talked to my grandpa, who's a World War II veteran, and I was like, do you ever experience anything like this in your life? He's like, not even when I was in Europe I didn't experience anything close to this. And if that goes to show you out of anything else, it's just so freaky, the way it's been. But when it also comes to just like you said, the clients don't really have that will to come back to the gym, which is understandable. I mean, I understand that. But and with masks and everything like that, I mean, I tried doing that a couple times, working out with a mask, and it's just after like the first 2 times I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this anymore. But have you done any of the online stuff then to try to help people get back in, or is that just what's that been like?
So the good thing was with my online nutrition clients, I was booming with on people like, hey, you know what? I need help with nutrition. And the good thing is most people don't understand. You can get on a nutrition plan and not work out a single day in your life and still make progress, build muscle, and drop weight. Most people don't understand that, but if you can get the science down with nutrition, you got it going on. I did have a couple clients reach out about virtual training. My perspective is as a trainer myself, I don't like doing like online because I can't correct your form. I can't get a good angle. I can't see how your foot placement is. And for having someone say, "Hey, scan your whole body for me. Let me see how you're scanning and what's the weight set at," it just takes too much time. And so I really did not do any virtual training whatsoever the entire quarantine. I just stuck with the nutrition plans. And if somebody wanted me to create like a workout plan at home with bands, I did that. But other than that, I stayed away from the virtual training. It's not my thing.
That's what I would have said too. Is that you can't really say, oh, bend your elbow a little bit more, correct your form, don't slag up so much. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I think a lot of people. That's one reason why I don't think so many people do it as they should. But one thing that I really do think is a positive thing that would come out of this. I mean, I don't even know, if there is anything really positive for society. Is that, I mean, you've heard this probably a million times. We talk about it every time you're on the podcast. Oh, I want to get in shape. I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time to do it. If you don't have the time now, I want to know what you're doing with your life, because I mean, everyone has more free time now. I don't care if you're still working at home. I mean, you can still do stuff while you're working, but another big one is that, so many people, I mean, let's be honest, everyone wants to lose weight and get in shape. They just don't know how to do it. They just lack the tools on how to do it. So if someone were to come up to you or even email you, or I don't think they'd be coming up to you now, especially during this quarantine, but if you would get a message like, hey, I want to get in shape, but I don't really know how to get started, what's the best piece of advice you'd like to give someone now? Because this is a whole new landscape when it comes to getting in shape, where a lot of people aren't going to come to gyms.
Right. And I always tell people, you need to make realistic goals. I'm saying realistic. Don't say, oh, I want to drop 10 pounds by the end of the month. No, realistically, we look at your schedule. We look at what you're doing for work, blah, blah, and say, do you have 20 minutes out of your day to go for a walk? We start like that. Well, yes. Can you do that 3 times a week for me? Well, yes. Let's start there. let's start there and let's try to add some more fiber into your diet. Let's have you start eating some more greens. I do a slow progression because I've noticed time and time again, people are wasting their money with nutrition plans with me because they can't find the time in the day to get their meals in, or they can't find the time in the day to get their greens in. And I will say, for all of you watching, it is possible. Time management is the number one thing. It is bullshit if you say you can't, because you can. I have a 1-year-old and a husband that's disabled, and I did 3 hours of cardio plus my gym workout. So it's possible. You need to just stay organized and make realistic goals. Don't tell me that you want to look like Phil Heath in a year if you're 100 pounds, because that's not a realistic goal.
And if that does happen to you, let me know what you did, because I will be more than happy to talk to you about that. Did you ever have like the baby on as like a backpack or anything like that while you were doing cardio? That would have been a way to keep entertained, at least.
We did have the baby carrier,
Yeah.
so when it did warm up, my husband and I would go for walks with my daughter, that way, or I would do lunges, push in the stroller or something like that. But
Those are ways, but yeah, I mean, the excuses that we hear too, and yeah, I mean, if I could just shake down every person and just say it's not going to happen overnight, it's ever evolving, and you're just going to have to really sacrifice a lot of things. Or you could just do the Shannon workout, everyone, and do 3 hours of cardio a day. Hey, you'll get results, but you'll hate your life and you'll hate yourself. Hey, it'll work, but yeah. So it's just. Yeah, just start for walking too. That's what I always say. If you have 2 able-bodied legs and you're able to walk, I mean, that's the healthiest thing that you can do if you don't have any knowledge in the gym. And I mean, just getting that start is just so important. But yeah, I mean, just the amount of things that have happened in this last year. I mean, especially talking to you specifically. I mean, it's just so fascinating. But what do you think is one body part that you've lost the most on and that you're looking to gain from? And what do you think is one body part that didn't change at all when you went through that change?
I will say my upper body suffered a lot. My back and my arms, my biceps actually did go down 2 inches.
What?
Yeah, so that was a huge shocker for me. And that was just, here's the thing. Yes, I had access to a private gym. And yes, I was still training, but I think people don't understand is your intensity level. I'm not working with my trainer, during quarantine. I didn't work with my trainer that was coaching me. I'm at the gym completely by myself. The lights are off, all of those factors play in. Like for me being a bodybuilder, I love to go to the gym and be the alpha male or alpha female in the gym. I love to, that motivates me. That motivates me seeing a guy bench 135 and I know that's my warm up weight. That is what helps me get going. So when I don't have that, my intensity is just shit. Like it is just so hard to find that motivation for you. And that was, I think, the number one thing is I just could not match that motivation by myself. It didn't matter what I did because nobody was with me. So finding that own motivation, it was just like, oh, okay, like another day, 3 hours of cardio in, hour into my workout. There were days, I'm not gonna lie, there were days I was just going through the motions to get it done, but there was literally no motivation. There was no, like, I wasn't enjoying it. It was just, I just had to get it done.
You could be just like my one friend who during the pandemic, he would take a 5-hour energy right before working out, and then he'd have like a big pixie stick thing that he'd buy like 30 of them at one stop at like a gas station. He'd just chug one of them right after he did the 5-hour energy. And I mean, we know he's going to die of a heart attack probably in the next couple of years. So we're spending as much time as possible as we can with him. So, Charlie, if you're watching this, we know. So, just stay calm. Don't take as much of that 5-hour energy that you're doing. But yeah, it's, finding that motivation, especially when you don't have like those other people in the gym. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just what we've had to deal with right now. But I mean, it's just so great that, I mean, at least things are opening up now, but who knows? I mean, when this probably gets released in a week or two, it's probably all going to be shut down again anyway. So everyone, we are in the last vestiges of hope really for this current pen. But do you have anything set up now for when it does eventually probably get shut down again and you might not be able to work out at your gym? Do you have like a nicer setup now so that you're able to survive at least?
What's funny is with our new house, my husband and I have bought a house with 2 pole barns. So we're in the process of trying to renovate one of our pole barns into a gym. The problem is it's very hard to find equipment right now, or everything is just ridiculously expensive. So, right now we just have kind of a game plan, but I already reached out to the private gym and said, listen, if this shuts down again, can I go in there? And they already said, yes, it's fine. So I have my backup plan. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. But until we finish renovating and getting equipment for, reasonable prices, I'm not going to be spending $10,000 for one squat rack. I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, absolutely. And I mean, a question that I was gonna ask you last time, but I forgot to ask, is because, I hear this all the time with people that have kids. I mean, having a kid changes your life. It really changes your perspective on things. How has having your daughter really changed your life when it comes to, just everything? Because it's one thing that impacts every aspect of your life, I think. But what do you think are being some of the biggest changes that have happened to you since having your daughter?
Realizing that your child, you can't just leave your child at home. You gotta bring your child everywhere you go. So that was such a huge thing. Is like even now that I'm back to work, my husband's like, oh, I have a haircut appointment on Thursday. Well, I have clients all day, so what are we going to do? It's just learning how to maneuver your schedule, spend time with your family, but also take time for yourself and do your normal thing. So that was the number one thing, is just learning, hey, like, we have a child now, we have to make sure that we include her in our daily plan.
Hey, yeah, she's not old enough to really just chill out and watch TV while mommy and daddy go and do their thing. No, but that's, yeah, and I mean, there's always that joke around my friends, the first one that has kids, we're just gonna cut them off because their social lives are basically over. So it's like, oh, it was a nice run, goodbye. But no, I mean, it's just so, and it's so great that you're able to do that being a bodybuilder too. Because there's so many things that I hear of online where it's like, oh, you never really see them with that many kids. It's hard for them because then it ruins their career. But I mean, she's living proof, everyone, that you can still do that. And did you have any reservations when it was announced that, or when you found out that you were pregnant, about your future career in bodybuilding, or did you always know, like, hey, this is probably what's going to eventually happen? I'm gonna have a kid while I'm still in my competitions phase of my life.
I once I found out I was pregnant, I think we touched on this a little bit last podcast, but I was just very determined to see how my body would respond rebounding, and it rebounded great. And so now, and I tell women, if you stay healthy and you rebound properly, where you can go back and you can get your menstrual cycle again, and you can get your femininity back, you're able to do it. Just talk to your coach and be like, hey, listen, in a year, I want to have a baby. So make sure that they cater to that and know that your body wants to get healthy again. And you should have no problems. You should have a coach that respects your boundaries. And I think I tell people this all the time, is you have to understand, bodybuilding is a very limited time frame in your life, and you have to learn about the long term goals. Is, what do you want to do? My husband and I talked, and when I got pregnant and we were like, oh, we want to have a family, that was a long term goal. And yes, bodybuilding is my current goal, and it probably will be for at least the next 10 years. But what's the outcome after that? And so, as long as you're very smart and you talk to a coach, and they don't pump you full of shit that's going to make you have the side effects that are not going to allow you to have a child, then you're screwed. But if you talk to your coach and say, this is what the plan is, then my husband and I have talked, because I get questions all the time, do I want another kid? I don't know right now, based on the circumstances of the world. No. But you know what? I still have it in the back of my mind. I want to be able to, if I decide to, I want to be able to be healthy and say, yes, I absolutely can have another child if I want to.
No, and that's a great mindset to have, because yeah, I mean, we've done podcasts here where it's really interesting with, especially with, well, I mean, it affects women because it's their livelihood and that's what they do, so having that kid. But yeah, it's just so amazing that you're able to do this, because I have not heard of any stories really of pregnant women really making that comeback as soon as you did. So that's just so great. Now, I mean, I'm asking this question at the end of the podcast, and I talked to her about it before. If we were to talk a year from today again, last year when we talked, I asked you that same question, and I'm gonna go back and look and see what your answer was. But I mean, if, like I said, if you would have predicted a global pandemic and everything going on, I would have bet my entire life savings against it, and I would have lost all my money. But hindsight's 2020. So if next year we're talking and you see fire in the background and gunshots and you hear everything, and the world seems like it's going to crap, hey, I called it here first. But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at a year from today? I mean, is there any like show dates that you have for next year in mind, or like overall, where would you like to be at when we talk to you a year from today?
Okay, so let's say today is November 9th, 2020. So in a year from now, let's just say, I want to answer this question. I want to be like, oh, I want to go pro. I want to be on the pro stage. For those of you who know what's going on with the nation right now, it doesn't look like we are going to be open anytime soon. It looks like, based on the circumstances, we're probably going to be locked down for at least another 6 months. And like I said, I ain't prepping myself through 6 months of hell again. So realistically, I'm probably going to look like this still and just try to maintain the muscle I have. If for some reason we have an epiphany and the we're all good, then I plan on stepping on stage early next year, and hoping to finally get that pro card and step on the pro stage. Like I said, these are just goals and dreams I have, but with the way the nation is going right now, I can't, it's so hard to answer that.
Well, and for anyone, for posterity, if you're watching this in the future, this is the day that they announced that they have that cure now for coronavirus, or that vaccine that's 90% effective. It's literally that day that it got announced. So for hindsight, so who knows? I mean, maybe things next year will be fine. But yeah, this has just been a year that I do not. I mean, if this year is ever replicated, I mean, I don't know. This is going to be something that we're going to be able to tell our grandkids about, the year where everything was basically shut down and we, went back to doing nothing. But yeah, it's something. I mean, one thing that I talked to, I'm just going to plug another podcast that I did with Monica Steiner, because she grew up in Argentina during the unrest and civil war there. So she made a good point that, like, us as Americans, we are very soft when it comes to dealing with, epidemics and stuff like that. Because in this country, we are very privileged where we don't have to deal with that many disasters. Where she was taking the coronavirus and she's like, this is nothing compared to what I dealt with in my childhood. So we are finally, I think, getting a taste of what other countries have been experiencing their whole lives. But it's just a fascinating time to be alive and to deal with all this. And again, Shannon, I mean, we cannot thank you enough for coming back on the podcast and, talking about how it's been going with you. And, I feel bad now knowing that you had to go through all that prep and deal with it now. But I mean, I think you came out a better person for it, knowing that, hey, this is an extreme form that I've done. And so I'm not going to, do it again. So are you doing any cardio at all now? Or are you just basically having your legs tied together when you're in the gym?
No, I'm doing about a half hour, 5 days a week. That's my coach tapered me down. So just doing a half hour, 5 days a week, just to kind of help maintain my fat levels. But that's about it. So I love a half hour to me is nothing. So I love it.
I was going to say, if I had to do that, the moment I saw a treadmill, I'd probably just self-throw up and stuff like that. I'd just have a body response where I'd just be like, nope. But that's just so great. And again, Shannon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below. And again, buyer beware. You are going to get inspired to get in shape and, stop eating all those Twinkies, just taking one look at her. But again, and Shannon, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I just want to give a shout out to my husband for being so supportive this entire prep, because for those of you who know how it's like to be married to a spouse when they're prepping, I appreciate all of you that have to deal with that. So my husband, absolutely, my daughter, my coach, Bill Toko, that helped me my entire prep. And of course, my new coach, Nelson Jones, who is now helping me rebound and get healthy in a safe way. So, those are my awesome support and small circle that I got right there.
Your husband should basically just apply to be a therapist now. I mean, he has all the training in the world. I mean, he could just step in one day and just do it. But yeah, and again, I love those appreciation shout outs to the spouses, because yeah, I think they are the undervalued part of this, because yeah, they deal with everything. And so again, shout out to her husband as well. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And I couldn't think of a better way, even though you've lost some of the muscle, can you give us a front double bye just so we can, she still got here. I did back up just a little bit then, because again, when you're dealing with big bodybuilders, it doesn't fit in this camp. So all right, yeah. So yeah, everyone, she still got it. All right. So that's just ridiculous. So, but again, you guys, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.